this section here, we are working on speed and agility. In this section, the athlete starts, runs, stops, decelerates, goes to a lateral movement, and then backpedals, goes to a lateral movement again, and then stops. This is working on forward acceleration and lateral deceleration. It is also working on incline acceleration as well, as there's a slight uphill. Water breaks are very important to prevent dehydration as well as rest period intervals. Here the athlete is working on deacceleration as well as control of the trunk, which involves the shoulder, hips, and the trunk. Powerful arm movements can also facilitate leg drive. Here the athlete is working on acceleration as well as the plant or stance phase, which is the transition between the deacceleration step and acceleration step. It's also working on agility in terms of the lateral movements and focusing on sprinting coming out of the lateral movements and circular movements. Proper breathing is trying to be exhibited here, which the athlete inhales through his nose and exhales through his mouth. Tries to control the breathing during the rest period in order to catch his breath and be ready for the next exercise. Here the athlete is working on box jumps or line jumps performed with a foam roller here, in which the athlete is working on agility and is resting at the time period right now. Right now he's working on step overs, which focus on footwork, increasing in speed, and the athlete is using 1 foot at a time, stepping over and coming back, trying to accelerate more with each step. In this part of the training program, the athlete is performing plyometrics. Here he begins squat jumps onto a box or a step. Athlete's knees shouldn't be going above his toes as he explodes up with his trunk and uses arm movements to accelerate upwards. In this exercise, the athlete is stepping up with 1 foot and coming back down with the same foot. He's focusing on speed when stepping up and footwork when stepping down. Water breaks are also important in plyometrics to prevent dehydration to increase the athlete's drive. In this exercise, the athlete is performing split jumps on a step up or a box. In this instance, the athlete is stepping up with one foot and exploding up and jumping with the other foot. This exercise has similarities to the last one, except this would be a lateral step up, which the athlete steps up with his left foot, brings the right foot up to the same step accordingly, and steps back down with the right foot first, and lands with the left foot. As soon as the left foot comes back down to the ground, the athlete immediately explodes back up with his inside foot. Now alternating, he explodes back up. As soon as the right foot touches the ground, he tries to explode back up and increase in speed as the exercise progresses. Plyometric training is important because plyometrics can help produce more force in a shorter amount of time with less energy. Here the athlete is performing split squat jumps or split lunge jumps, in which he comes down, does a lunge, and explodes back up vertically, and drives up with the knees and uses the arms as momentum to swing upwards. In this exercise, the knee also should not go above the toes in order to prevent knee injuries. In this next exercise, the athlete is performing horizontal one-leg jumps, in which he tries to extend his leg as far out as he can, land and balance for a moment, then explode back out as far as he can. When he lands, he tries to maintain the balance. In this section of the program, the athlete is performing resistance training. In this exercise, he is doing lateral shoulder raises. Resistance training is good because it increases muscular strength and can help decrease injuries. Now the athlete is performing forward shoulder raises, in which the arms are kept straight, the weight is raised upwards and lowered down slowly. The deltoids are one of the major muscle groups that are used during this exercise. In this next exercise, the athlete is performing weighted lunges. The athlete starts in a position, brings one leg forward, and lowers the opposite leg a couple inches above the ground. Comes back up and does the same thing with each alternating legs each time. Again, the knee should not go over the toe of the foot, which will prevent injuries of the knees and can better enable the athlete to maintain proper balance and proper technique. In this next exercise, the athlete is performing shoulder raises, in which he brings the weight above his head, straightens his arms, holds for a second, brings back down slowly. This exercise is again good for the deltoids and the shoulders. The athlete can bring the weight down to 90 degrees or even lower in some instances. The athlete should not perform this activity too quickly and should focus on proper techniques. Here's where we begin the flexibility training part of the program. The athlete does a light jog at 25% to engage the muscles and warm them up. He now increases the speed to about 50% to activate the muscles and get them ready for the dynamic stretches that he is about to perform. In this instance, the athlete starts a dynamic stretch by starting with some knee pulls. Knee pulls can be sport-like movements that can be similar to running. The athlete loses balance here on the hill, but regains it for the most part. Ties his shoe for a little bit because it got unloosened by the grass. He now continues the knee pulls, making sure and increasing the range of movement and the time held with each knee pull. Here the athlete is performing floor sweeps. This exercise can be very beneficial for the hamstrings, loosening up the hamstrings. Your arms should lower down as your back lowers, and you sweep the floor in a sweep motion. The leg that you stick out, your toe should be raised in order for the hamstring muscle to be activated a little bit more. In this next exercise, the athlete is performing open hurdle gaits. This is also a sport-like movement and activates the hip joints and the hip muscles. He opens up his hip, brings one leg over, opens up the other hip, brings that leg over. Here the athlete begins to perform the walking quad stretch. He grabs one ankle, lifts the other hand in the air for balance, and holds the stretch of the quad. He again loses balance on the uphill rock that was found later in the video. Here the athlete is again